Welcome to Clued in Mystery. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brooke, and we both love mystery.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Sarah. We have such a treat today. We have an interview episode, one of our favorite things to do, author interviews.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to this one because I am sure, are going to have a really interesting conversation about children's books and Agatha Christie. And those two things don't always go together.
That's right. This is going to be a fun conversation with Marci Kay Monson, who is the author of the mini mystery series. These are interactive picture book mysteries for children. She's an avid reader, crafter, and gardener. She received her BS in Technical Communications from Utah State University and a graduate certificate in publishing from the Denver Publishing Institute. She found a love for Agatha Christie when her book club read And Then There Were None and Never Looked Back. She loves story, bright colors, and a bit of cozy and fictional murder. Raised in Japan, England, and Germany, she now lives with her dog Suki in Leighton, Utah. Thank you so much for joining us, Marci.
Of course, I'm so excited to be here.
Marcy, what inspired you to adapt Agatha Christie for a younger audience? And in doing that, how much flexibility did you feel like you had?
Yeah, so I have always loved the baby lit books. They are board books for babies, but it's Pride and Prejudice and Alice in Wonderland and, those. They just did War and Peace. And so they're taking giant concepts and making them into 20 to 50 word board books for babies. I don't have children, and I have collected those books for they've actually been out 15 years. So I have all of them and I've collected them. And I just kept saying, someone needs to do that for Agatha Christie. She's now in the public domain. Like, someone really needs to do this. And then, after a couple of years of saying that, I thought, oh, wait, I should do this. Stop telling other people to do this. I should do this. So, yeah, that was where my inspiration came from. And then I realized how hard that is to take this high concept adult book and really whittle it down. As for flexibility, I really learned from those baby lit books. They are taking Pride and Prejudice and making it into a tiny just one word per page. And so I really felt like that kind of gave me the freedom in mine. However, Agatha Christie writes pretty complicated mysteries, and I wanted to make sure that I was still telling the story or, the main storyline. Obviously, can't do all of the details and the intricacies that she does, but I wanted to make sure that I was still true to that story. And so maybe less flexibility than a baby lit book where it's just like colors from a book. And, but still flexibility because it's a children's book and it's 32 pages. So you've got to cut out a lot and people understand that.
I have to say, I think you do a terrific job because I have a young reader and we have enjoyed reading your books together. How old would you say is your target audience?
Yeah, I think the age listed is 4 to 8. And I think an interesting part of the books is that the 4-year-olds come in and they like the bright colors of the illustrations and they like the activities. And the 8-year-olds come in and they get into the mystery and the storyline. And so I think that it can grow with the child where, they can come in with that smaller concept and eventually grow it and really read it and understand it as they grow.
Yeah, that's an important part about your books is they're multi-layered. I One thing I love about them is they remind me of kind of the way children's books used to be when we were younger. I think that the the budgets and the creativity was maybe a little bit more. I personally had a lot of books that had the little, like the pull tabs, so you could make the character do an action, or maybe you had a flap that opened that revealed something. And you don't see that quite so much anymore, but your books really harken back to that. And I love that there's an activity on each page, or a character that you're following through the story, that's a side plot almost. And I love that about them.
Yeah, I actually, as I'm thinking back on my answer, it's like 4-year-olds like the bright colors and looking for the mouse or the cat. There's a mouse in the first and the cat in the second. And then the 6-year-olds are into the activities, and then the 8-year-olds are into the stories. So, yeah, I think that's a good point, is that there's different levels along the way.
I love it. So clever. Well, murder mystery isn't usually a topic for kids' books. Do you think that there are any Christie stories, or other mysteries that would kind of be off limits that you just wouldn't ever adapt for one of your books?
Yeah, so I think it's important that people understand beforehand, like, that this is a murder mystery, but the body, like, all you see of the body is her feet, at the end of the bed. And Christie doesn't do a lot of gore anyway, which is why she does make it good to adapt. But um, yeah, we're not showing children people being murdered, so that's good. But I do think, like, off limits, we've kind of struggled with what do we do with some of her books that have murder in the title, or that have, like, the body in the library. Do we say the mystery of the library? Do we say the mystery on the Orient Express? And how true do we have to stay in order for people to understand what it is? But I don't know that we'd have to really stay away from any of the actual stories. Although my favorite Christie is "And Then There Was None," which a lot of people die in that book. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but a lot of people die. That might be a hard one to adapt, as it'd be hard to get around the all of the death and do it in a cozy way by killing off that many
Right.
characters. Yeah.
Right. I think I heard an interview with you at one point, or maybe read an interview where you talked about, trying to make the romantic subplot, or maybe the romantic motive, applicable to kids. Is that
Yeah.
sometimes difficult as well?
Yeah, so in the first book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, that is all based on an affair and a woman marrying a man that turns out to be nefarious. But I think kids can understand cheating without understanding what the mechanics of that are, or what that really means. But that he lied to his wife, and
Mhm.
he ended up killing his wife, without without getting into the nitty gritty. Kids are okay with, some of the overhead details. In The Mystery of the Blue Train, my second book, that is based on 4 affairs. So that was a little tricky to get around. And again, it was kind of like he was mean to his wife. He lied to his wife, instead of the reality of Agatha Christie's work, where he cheated on his wife and she was cheating on him. But kids can understand, even in a friendship concept of, well, my friend was mean to me, and they can make that work. So yes, I did have to take out some of the more illicit things in The Mystery of the Blue Train.
And so, how do you think Agatha Christie would react to your books?
So that is not a question I had ever thought of before you asked. Um, I have been very worried about Agatha Christie fans, because I know there are some rabid fans out there, and I was very worried about people reading this book and being like, "Well, you didn't get this tiny detail that the whole story hinges on." And I was very worried that, yeah, they would come in and pick it apart. But I've actually gotten pretty good reception of people understanding this is a 32-page version, and yeah, the main story's there. So people have been very kind. As for Agatha Christie, she loved children's books. She taught herself to read at age 5, and she absolutely loved picture books. And she said that once she learned to read, um, she demanded books for Christmas and birthday from then on. And so I hope that she would maybe be pleased that I'm introducing her work to kids a little earlier. And my hope, my goal is that kids will read my version and they'll become familiar with it. And then when they're a little bit older, they'll say, "Oh, wait, I know this book. I know this story." And they'll be able to then go to her version, and that will open up this lifelong, not that my books alone will open up a lifelong reading love of reading, but hopefully it'll just be like a little one little door to that love.
Absolutely.
I think kids love mystery. And so you are making classic and well loved mysteries accessible to kids. And I think, yeah, you probably are opening the door to future Christie readers.
That's the goal. I would love that.
Well, Marci, what other classic crime stories are you adapting for kids?
So I actually have a third book releasing in April that I'm really excited about, and it's in the same mini mystery series, but it's Nancy Drew's The Secret of the Old Clock. And so adapting one of my favorite childhood characters, Nancy Drew, and taking the same concept, same length, a brand new illustrator who just really nailed it. And yeah, so we're doing Nancy Drew next. And I'm just really excited for everyone to see that one because it is beautiful and it is fun. And the, she's such a fun character in all of her different ways. So that will be coming out in April.
So I'm interested that in a couple things here that you have a separate illustrator for this. What kind of drove that decision?
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to keep the two. So it's the same series, but we wanted to keep the two um, breakoffs separate.
Hmm.
And so Greg Peprocky will continue to illustrate any Agatha Christie's that we do. And my new illustrator, Ryan Wheatcroft, will do any Nancy Drew and kind of just keep different styles for each. I think Greg's lends itself really well to that time period of Agatha Christie, Golden Age, that kind of thing, while Ryan Wheatcroft does a really lovely job with Nancy's slightly more modern era. And so, yeah, just kind of keeping them separate while they still have all the same trim size and binding and that kind of thing. So they're part of a series, but a little different. And the Nancy Drew books have the yellow binding that I was very clear from the start. They've got to have yellow spines.
Fun. Um, of course, that series is originally written for kids, maybe a little bit older kids. But was that a different experience in adapting those since maybe you didn't have some of those concepts or ideas we spoke about before to work around?
Yes, I will say I think that it was in a lot of ways easier because it's already written for a younger audience. Nancy Drew is already a younger character. She's barely even talking to Ned Nickerson, so there's definitely not anything illicit in there. I will say the where I ran into problems is that Nancy Drew has been updated over the years. And so I used the 1960s version to write my first draft. And my illustrator actually came in and said, "This isn't the right version. We have to use the 1930s because of the rules of public domain." And the 1930s version was actually very different than the 1960s version. There were a lot of characters taken out. Some of the storyline was pretty changed. And so that was actually more of a complication is I had to go back and read and find the 1930s version and then write from that. So I'm writing my second Nancy Drew right now, and I learned my lesson this time. So hopefully I'll make it much easier on myself and start from the 1930s version.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sarah and I have done an episode on, Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and some of those long-standing series, and they did sanitize them over the years.
Mhm.
The other thing that I find really interesting about some of the early versions is the reckless and rather dangerous things that the characters do. So I suppose there's some of that you're working around.
Yes, I actually just listened to your Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys episode last week, I think, and you talked about having a gun, and I had just read that part. It's in the second book that I'm working on, that her dad hands her a revolver and is like, "Here, this will keep you safe." And she's like, "Okay."
Exactly.
And she's like, "I brought enough ammo that it'll," and I just was like, "Oh my word, Nancy." So that will not be part of my book. But yeah.
So you mentioned your release coming out in April is a Nancy Drew story, and you're currently working on another Nancy Drew adaptation. Will you be doing another Christie adaptation? And will it feature Hastings the Mouse?
I would love to do another Hercule Poirot book. So far, that's not in the plans, but I would absolutely love to continue with that character. I think Hercule is just, he's pompous and funny, and I love him. And then, yeah, I really love Hastings the Mouse and that whole concept. So I really hope we get to do more. Um, we'll see. Right now, we're continuing with Nancy, but I think as the whole series goes on, there might be more opportunities for more Agatha Christie, I hope.
And do you think you would tackle any other well-loved series? Brooke and I have talked a lot about Sherlock Holmes and kind of the adaptations and the variations that we've seen on that character, but there are lots of other kind of early mysteries that could be ripe for this kind of treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about possibly Sherlock Holmes. That seems like the obvious one. My publisher, my editor, mentioned the Bobbsey twins was her love, and she was like, "Let's do them." My dad really wants me to do the Maltese Falcon. I think that just came into public domain this year. I've never read that one, so I think there are lots of opportunities. It's fun, and especially as the series becomes maybe more known, hopefully, we can move into those areas where you don't have to have the known author or the known character to build on, but maybe go spread out a little bit.
Hmm. I could even see, Marci, that authors who are writing now, like rather than relying on public domain titles, authors say, "Hey, I would love to have the mini mystery version of this book so that, the younger audience could enjoy my mystery too." So we'll see where it goes, right?
I hope Richard Osman listens to this and wants me to do Thursday Murder Club kids versions.
I would buy
That would be
it.
incredible.
Yeah, I know that would be terrific. So, Marcy, where can listeners find you?
Yes, so my website is marcikmonson.com, and it's Kay. So my full name for my website. And then I'm also on Instagram, and I have a book recommendation handle there. So it's Marcy's Book Recs, RECS. So I try to post book recs and talk about what's going on with the books. And I get to go visit a school next week and do some fun things for Nancy Drew. So follow me there to see some updates.
Oh, that's so fun. And we'll make sure that we put links to those in the show notes.
Thank you again for joining us, Marci. And thank you, listeners, for being here today on Clued in Mystery. Until next time, I'm Brooke.
And I'm Sarah, and we both love mystery. Clued in Mystery is written and produced by Brooke Peterson and Sarah M. Stephen. Music is by Shane Ivers. If you liked what you heard, please consider telling a friend, leaving a review, or subscribing with your favorite podcast listening app. Visit our website to sign up for our newsletter, The Clued In Chronicle, and get mystery news, podcast updates, and bonus episodes. We're on social media at Clued In Mystery.